Hey everyone, it's Mike Shooten here, and I'm with Tabitha. We're in our Ottawa office here with the ARPA Canada team. And yesterday afternoon, we received the long-awaited decision from Ad Standards on our billboard. It was a disappointing decision. Tabitha's going to go into that a bit more, but I want to start with just sharing with you, our faithful supporters, that we are so incredibly thankful for all the support that you give us year after year, but also all the support that you've shown towards this billboard campaign. We had over 30 billboards up from coast to coast. You helped fund those, you helped support them. You communicated with Ad Standards throughout this course of complaint process and our responses, etc. And you've done such a fine job of that, of being good ambassadors for the pro-life message, of being good ambassadors for our preborn neighbors throughout the course of all that communication. So I'm going to turn it over to Tabitha. She's going to share a little bit about the decision that came down yesterday, and then we're going to talk about some of the ways in which you can continue to help us through this process and as we advance and continue working to advance preborn human rights here in Canada. Tabitha, maybe you can share.
So just so you remember, this was our message. Canada has no abortion laws. Seems pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and yet people complained that it was inaccurate. They said, no, we have laws. Just to start, we would love there to be laws. We would love to be wrong, but unfortunately we're not. So when people complain to Ad Standards, this put us in the position of trying to prove the negative. We were trying to prove that there are no laws, and we went through all the normal definitions of law that we could think of: federal criminal regulation, provincial health regulation, provincial college policies, the charter and how it applies, and we laid this all out to Ad Standards. Look, there is no law by any definition of law that we can come up with. But yesterday we received the decision from Ad Standards, and they spend one paragraph dealing with the actual substance of the complaint. And what they say is that we're mistaken, that there is law. They say that there's the Morgentaler case, which, if you are at all familiar with Canadians' history of law on abortion, the Morgentaler case is the reason why we don't have a law. It struck down the previous law. And then they reference, they say that this decision, coupled with regulations imposed by Canadian authorities. They have no source for this. They just claim that it exists. We've not been able to find anything on this, what they're referring to, but they just sort of leave it in that sort of vague, there is law, without actually countering any of our arguments or providing any sources to prove what they're saying.
Do you understand this, people? Like, this is what is so frustrating through the course of this process. Like, it didn't start with receiving this response. We first were forwarded more than 30 complaints from people who didn't like our billboard. They don't like what we stand for. They don't like the fact that we want preborn children to be protected. But none of them, nobody, could show us a clear example of a Canadian law that protects or regulates abortion or protects preborn children. Nobody. And Ad Standards can't either. They refer to these Canadian regulations without substantiating anything. That's what's so frustrating through the course of this process, and why we're convinced that Ad Standards is being used by abortion rights activists to censor pro-lifers, and why we're going to continue pushing back. Now, Tabitha's been very involved. She wrote responses to all those 30 plus complaints. She's invested heavily as one of the members of our team in this file. Now, Tabitha, we're going to be appealing this ruling. We have until October the 4th to appeal. We're going to be appealing it, and you've done some preliminary work on how we can appeal, how we can still as yet make the case to Ad Standards that our billboard does not violate the Canadian Code of Advertising Standards. Now, can you share with our supporters one of the really key things that we're going to be communicating to the Ad Standards panel that reviews our appeal to this decision yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, well, you should realize when we started this billboard campaign, we didn't think this would be an issue. We didn't think that this is what people would disagree with. It's a fact that's often touted by pro-abortion people. You can find it all over the internet of various pro-abortion people saying this. We weren't trying to be sneaky. We weren't trying to make a fuss over whether this was true. We thought this was obvious, and we wanted to start a conversation with people. Okay, Canada has no abortion laws. Let's talk about it. Yeah. But Ad Standards has ruled against this, and the interesting thing is Ad Standards has a history of ruling against pro-life billboards, and we found one from just 10 years ago. And the billboard it was in Edmonton, said 9 months. That is the amount of time the government says it is legal to have an abortion. So that's what this billboard said. The government says it's legal. And Ad Standard said that billboard was also inaccurate. And there they said, the Canadian government has not, through legislation or otherwise, declared that abortions were either legal or illegal. That sounds like there's no law on abortion.
That's exactly what they're saying, right?
Yeah, and they said the exact opposite to us, that they said that binding law that permits abortion in Canada does in fact exist. How do you square these two decisions? Is there a law or is there not a law? Ad Standards has said both is inaccurate, which leaves us as what can we say about Canadians' legal situation on abortion that is accurate?
Mm-hmm. And Tabitha, can you clarify for our supporters, since 2008, has anything changed in Canadian jurisprudence as it regards abortion or preborn human rights?
No, absolutely nothing has changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. And nothing has changed, and you know this well, our supporters, nothing has changed in the last 30 years, since 1988, since that Morgentaler decision. So we're going to be pointing this out to Ad Standards in our appeal. We're going to be pointing out their inconsistency. In fact, yesterday's ruling that we received, essentially, by doing so, they ruled against themselves from only 10 years prior. Now, you can't have it both ways. As Tabitha said, abortion activists tout the fact that in Canada, we have no law, and they love it like that. They don't want a law. Now that we're saying it, they somehow have a problem with it. Clearly, they have an agenda against our organization, against you as pro-life Canadians, and they want to use every tool at their disposal to censor us. So that's the decision. Clearly, we're disappointed and frustrated, and I'm sure you can sense that. But there still is something we can do. We have this appeal process that we're going to take. The opportunity is there. We want to make that last pitch to Ad Standards that they made the wrong decision. Give them another opportunity to right what is now a wrong, what they have made into a wrong decision. But there's also something that you can do, our supporter. You can help us. You can stand in solidarity with us using the tools that we have at our disposal. Tabitha, can you share a little bit about what we're planning for later today?
Yeah, so Ad Standards is not a government body. They have no legal authority. The only authority they have is what is granted to them. It's the perceived authority and the legitimacy of their rulings. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we want to make very clear to Ad Standards, and we need your help in doing this, is that their reputation is at stake. Their only authority, which is given to them by people assuming that they are an objective and legitimate body, that's at stake with this decision, because this decision makes it very clear that they are ruling not against our billboard or what we're saying, but against who we are as an organization, because some activists don't like us and got people to complain about us. So our hope is that we want to put Ad Standards on notice, that we are going to make it very clear that it is true that Canada has no abortion law. And we are going to be asking that you as well participate in this. And we're going to have more information about this as the day goes on, but we're hoping that we can use social media to really get the message out there. And we're hoping that you will be on board and helping us with that.
Mm-hmm. And the reason why we need you to follow us on the social media networks to engage with those action items is because we need to take a stand here. If this ad if they say this violates the Canadian Code of Advertising Standards, then what pro-life ad are we allowed to put out there? How are we going to get the message out there? How are we going to educate Canadians, continue educating them, that abortion is an injustice, that we have no laws, that preborn children and fetuses in Canada have no protection whatsoever? How are we going to continue doing that if we can't get our message out there? So we need to put Ad Standards on notice that we're not going to just take this. We're going to appeal, and we need you to do everything you can to help us with that in the coming days and weeks. So follow us, continue following us on Facebook and Instagram throughout the day, where those action items will be made clear. They're easy for you to take part in, and we're hoping that hundreds, if not thousands of you will do that in that act of solidarity, to stand with us in defense of this ad and ultimately in defense of our preborn neighbors.
Yeah, so one of the things we have to realize with this billboard campaign is we didn't come out here to get in a fight with Ad Standards. That was never our intention. Our intention was to get the public informed and to get them talking about whether we need a law.
And that's what this is about, right? But we have to remember that this is about the fact that today again, 300 preborn children are going to lose their lives to abortion. And we have to do everything we can to speak up for them and to work to advance protections for those preborn children. So from the Ottawa offices, thanks for listening and tuning in. And again, make sure that you follow us throughout the course of this day for more action items as they develop. Take care.